Hey, what is up, my people? Today we are going to be doing our end of unit review. So make sure you've got your notes that you've already taken out. We're going to go over some test questions together. All right. So first things first, I've got my notes out. If you've not taken these notes yet, make sure you do that. They're EMS notes for the unit. They've been posted throughout Google Classroom. What we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to use your notes to answer some of these test questions. So first things first, blah, 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 blah. Just so you know, I typically start reading these questions with the question. So the main thing I want to know is which diagram is accurate and why. Okay? So this is a level 1 question. This is a top-down view. That's another important piece of the puzzle here. And I need to determine which one of these is correct. And I've been given several choices here. Diagram A is accurate because the whole moon is bright as long as there's no shadow covering parts of it. Another one is B, because the moon is almost as close as it can be to the sun. So the moon is almost lit, fully lit by the sun. Diagram C is accurate because half of the moon that is facing the sun is lit by the sun and the other half is dark. And then all three of these diagrams are accurate because of light and colored rock. So if we go back to our notes, first of all, the very first key concept that we learned here was that half of the moon is always lit. So that means all models with a top-down view should be half lit with the side closest to the sun illuminated. So as I'm looking at this, it wants to know which one of these models is the most accurate and why. Sort of seems like this first one, that half of the moon is always lit, makes me think that this might be our answer. But let's keep going a little bit further. Let's be certain. So right now we kind of think it's this one. But let's look at our other examples. Light and dark colored rocks. So we do have a section of that in our notes here that I believe it's number 3 down. The moon does have light and dark rocks, but that is not why we see different phases of the moon. So I'm really leaning towards C on this one because this is our level 1 question. Half of that moon should be lit, so that would be our answer. Now, for our level 2 questions, we're really focusing more on phase changes, and this is where our notes can really come into play here. So we see 2 of them. We want to know why this phase change occurred from one observation to the next. Now we see 2 of them start off with the same statement. Between the first and second photograph, the moon moved. Oh, this one's the Earth moved. This one's the moon moved. So a lot of these kind of sound similar when we go through it. So it's important that we go and we check the why that's at the end of these statements. So one is it moved farther away from the sun. One is the Earth's shadow. One is the moon rotated, so less of the colored rock. So one's about colored rock. And then this one is the moon moved so that Jim was able to see less of the half facing the sun. So let's look at our notes. And let's see what we can see about colored rocks, about the Earth's shadow, and about how far away the moon is to the sun. So if we go down our list here, we have a section with light and dark colored rocks, but that is not why we see the different phases of the moon. So that can't be it. The moon is sometimes closer to the sun. That was one of our non-examples here. But it says in my notes here that is not why we see different phases of the moon, so we know that's a non-example too. Then we also see, so we've got light and dark colored rocks. We've got that the moon moved further away. Also in our notes, though, this moon can sometimes rarely have a shadow. from the Earth to darken it. And that's called a lunar eclipse, but that's not why we see the moon phases. So we know it wasn't the Earth's shadow. It wasn't that it moved closer to the sun. It wasn't the light and dark-colored rocks. So let's look at this last statement. Between the first and second observation, the moon moved so that Jim was able to see less of the half that faces it, which is what we see here. He's able to only see less. So what this is really saying is that the moon is in orbit around the Earth, and it moves in that orbit to different positions. And depending on where we are on the Earth, we see a different phase of the moon based on the moon's orbit. So this is our correct answer. Now, for our final level, our third level, it's going to be the same question for each of these, and that is, could the half of the moon that is facing the Earth ever be completely dark? And it's your job to go through each one of these and determine, yes, it will always be lit, or sometimes it will be lit, or it will never be lit. And then you have to choose the correct one below. So let's look at number 1. So for these, just mentally, I know you can't do it on the screen, but I just like to color in the half that is facing the sun here, because that's the way it should look, right? So, could the half of the moon in number 1 ever be completely dark? And this is one where we just kind of have to remember, where whenever we have the sun, the Earth, and the moon in a straight line, most of the time that will be our full moon, right? But every now and then, remember, if we go back to our notes, we know every now and then we actually have ourselves here a lunar eclipse when the sun and the Earth are all in a perfect line. So we would say for this one, sometimes. For our full moon here, again, the light from the sun travels in straight lines. So there's no way for it to travel around and make the side that's closest to the Earth bright. So we would say it's always going to be dark here. And then for this one, because this half is always going to be lit, and I'll be able to see a portion of that, it will probably appear as a crescent, it's never going to be completely dark. So now I just have to find my appropriate response. Let's see, always in diagram 2, but never in 1 or 3. Nope. Always in diagram 2 and sometimes in 1. Yep. That's what I got. So friends, make sure you, if you haven't done so, take your notes. Use those notes and your key concepts to help you through these 3 levels of questions on the test. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.